Hi everybody, it's Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and I have the first block for you for 2024. This one is called Mrs. Bryan's Choice, and here is my sample block. And I'll be making this with a different fabric line. This is some Lori Holt fabric, so they're all different of her lines. There's a mix in here. But anyway, this one is pretty easy. It's made with flying geese units and squares, so that's about all there is to that. So I hope you'll stay with me, and I'll show you how to make Mrs. Bryan's Choice. Here are the fabrics you're going to need to make the Mrs. Bryan's Choice block. For A, you'll need one 4.5 inch square. B is 4 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles. C is 4 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangles. D is 4 2.5 inch squares. E is 16 2.5 inch squares, and F is 12 2.5 inch squares. And for the E squares, you can draw a diagonal line on the wrong side to help guide you. These are for making the flying geese. So that will help. You can also use foundation paper to make flying geese if that's what you'd like to do. So actually the flying geese is the only unit that we have to make. Everything else is as it is, the squares and the background squares. So we're going to get started by making a whole bunch of flying geese. Okay, I'm going to start with my B rectangles and my E squares. Now, if you've been following me for any length of time, you already know how to do this, and if you've been quilting for any length of time, you probably know how to do this. I'm going to start with a rectangle on the right side, or I'm going to start with a square on the right side of the rectangle, and I'm going to sew directly on this drawn line. And I'm going to do this with all of my rectangles. So I'm going to do the right side of each one first, and then I will trim this outer corner, press the triangle out, and then I'll sew a square on to the left side of the rectangle. And I am still sewing with my Singer 1590, and I probably will for quite some time. I have saved up money to buy a new machine, but I'm really enjoying sewing on this, so I'm in no big hurry at the moment. And if you see some of my older videos, you'll see that I was singing or sewing on a Singer 1591, which is real similar to this. About the only difference is the motor. It has a potted motor that is gear driven, where this one is a belt driven motor. Okay, let me grab, I need a piece of fabric here to do my leaders and enders. Oops, there we go. And I'm going to cut these apart. And my little dog is in here with me, so you may hear her. She was snoring just a minute ago, and then she's found a piece of paper to lay on. I'm not sure what she found. Oh, she found a floor plan to our new house to lay on. It's one of the first drafts that we're not using. And I had it kind of propped up against the wall, and she's pulled it down and she's laying on it. And I will give you an update on the house situation in another video. Okay, so let me press these open. Okay, so here they are. So now I'm going to sew the square onto the other side. And those will, the diagonal line will go from the center to the bottom left-hand corner on this one, where on this side it went from the center to the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, so here are all the flying geese units. Those are the B and the E with the E squares, and then we're going to do the C rectangles with the E squares. So we'll have a different colorway. And then we'll sew those together. So this is going to be the same process. Just sew squares to both sides and follow that drawn line. Okay, so here are those flying geese with that colorway. So now we're ready to sew these together, and what we're going to do is to sew the blue on the top, and they're going to put the gold one at the bottom. So they're going to go like this. Okay, so what we have is this. So I'm going to press, and I'm going to press towards the flying geese on the top, so towards the blue. So there's one all pressed. Okay, so now let's make some 4-patch units. So for those, we need the F squares and the D squares. So there's 4 of these. We're going to make 4 identical units. Okay, so I'm going to lay out all the pieces for the 4-patch. And we've got 2 backgrounds on the top row, and then a background and a print on the bottom row. So we're going to sew all these together and make 4 identical units, and they're just going to rotate as we put them in the block. So I'm going to go ahead and lay all of these out. So there'll be 4 pieces in each one, and I'm going to turn my fabric so that the right side is up. And on this grunge, some of it's hard to tell which is right side and which is wrong side. And other pieces are just fine, but let me get that sorted out, and then we'll get started sewing. Okay, all right, here we go. Now you could, instead of doing 2 squares up here, you could do 1 rectangle, a 2.5 by 4.5 inch rectangle if you want to. I think the block looks better with it being pieced like this, but to save you time on sewing, you can certainly do it that way. So I'm going to sew all the first rows together. I'm going to sew all the pieces of the first row together, and then I'll sew the pieces of the second row together. Then I'll press and then sew the rows to each other. Okay, here's the 4-patch unit. And sorry, I didn't have my camera in the right position to film this, but it's just sewing those 4 pieces together. And I'm going to press Okay, so I have all the pieces here. So flying geese units and 4-patch units, and then here's the center. So let's go ahead and lay these out. The flying geese units are going to go on the sides. And the gold one's going to face the center. So all the flying geese are actually pointing out. And then the 4-patch is going to go in like this. Okay, so we have points to match at all of these intersections here. And the way your seams are pressed will make a difference as to how easy this goes together. It may be easier for you if you press all your seams open, so if that helps you out, then go ahead and do it that way. So far, what I've done is the flying geese are all pressed up towards the blue, and these 4 patches are also pressed towards the blue square. And so far that looks like that's going to work really well as far as sewing all of these together. So all my seams will lock together, I think. Anyway, we'll find out. It looks like it now. Sometimes I get turned around and it doesn't work that way, but we'll see. So I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to sew the first 2 pieces of each row together, and then I'll add the 3rd piece, and then we'll sew all the rows together. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and nest my seams, and I'm going to pin and then sew. So this is Mrs. Bryan's choice. It's a 12-inch block. It's a 9-patch, so you got 9 units in it. And I think I like this line of fabric. I liked it when I saw it in the shop, and I really like it made into this block. So I think this will make a really pretty quilt. Okay, that is it for Mrs. Bryan's choice. And here is the completed block. I think it turned out pretty well. So this is not too difficult, just flying geese units and squares, and you just have to do your best to match your points, and that's about all there is to it. So it makes a nice 12-inch square. So I hope you liked this video, and if you did, please click that like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and click that notification bell so you'll be notified when the next video comes up. And in the meantime, I hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links, and to keep up with my latest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.